This is interesting. I watched Sunday, and for people who listen to the Doug Gottlieb Show, it's daily, 3 to 6 Eastern Time, 12 to 3 Pacific. All week I said Tampa in the under. Thought that Tampa would run the football a ton. Thought that Tampa would be able to get after Pat Mahomes without blitzing a ton because the Chiefs' offensive line was so depleted. Now, I didn't know that the Chiefs wouldn't put into place enough protections for Pat Mahomes where he never felt like he set his feet. And we'll talk about Mahomes and his performance and why no one will say what everybody thinks in watching him in 2 Super Bowls, but nonetheless. Afterwards, he didn't say anything negative about his coach, his coaching staff, their preparation, his offensive line. Hell, Sammy Watkins, if you're double teaming Travis Kelce, if you're double teaming Tyreek Hill, it stands to reason that Sammy Watkins should be open, wasn't open a ton. Right? There was no mention of wide receivers not getting open, offensive line not blocking, coaching staff not preparing, coaching staff not adjusting. None of that. There was simply accountability. Hey, we got to get better. This is Pat Mahomes after the game.
A lot of times it gets put on that O-line because I'm scrambling around. But if we're not executing it as far as me making the right reads and getting the ball out of my hand to the receivers on time, then nothing's going to work. They get that blame sometimes, but it's not deserved because, a lot of it's on me and people just don't see it that way.
How about that? Hey, I know people want to say it's on them, but it's on me. Now, I want you to consider that, okay? Now, here's a kid who's in his he just completed his 4th year in the NFL, and he's had an unbelievable amount of success. Didn't start his first year except for game 16. Started his second year, was the MVP of the league. They lose in the AFC Championship game on an offsides call, which was a good call, but one in which nullified an interception that would have won them the game. His 3rd year in the NFL, they trail in all 3 playoff games, come from behind all 3 games, including the Super Bowl. He's the Super Bowl MVP. 4th year in the NFL, again, goes well. They don't dominate, but they're clearly the best team in the AFC. They get to a Super Bowl, and they get annihilated. And a good portion of the reason was that he was under duress the entire game. And he offered no parachutes for himself. Instead, simply a soft landing for his offensive line. Hey, I know they get some of the blame or a lot of the blame, but mostly it's not on them. It's on me. I got to get rid of the football. This is Russell Wilson, who, not as highly touted, drafted later in the draft, did start his rookie year, has been to 2 Super Bowls, won 1. This is Russell Wilson yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show on why he should have say in personnel decisions.
I think that ultimately, for me personally, I think that I want to be able to be involved because at the end of the day, it's your legacy, it's your team's legacy, it's the guys you get to go into the huddle with, and at the end of the day, those guys you got to trust.
Are you involved in personnel decisions? Have you been involved in personnel decisions?
Not as much. I don't. I think that.
Do you want to be involved, Russ?
Yeah, I think it helps. I think it helps to be involved more. But I think that dialogue should happen more often, in my opinion.
Everyone's talking about what Russell Wilson said in terms of should he have a say, should he not have a say. I just can't believe what he said, right? This is 2 days removed from him being the Walter Payton Man of the Year. Now, I understand that has to do with your good works off the football field, okay? But one would think that if you're thoughtful and giving of your time, of your money, of your energy, of your resources for the greater good of the world or a specific part of the community, you would have the same sort of thought process in your work, But he told reporters yesterday he was tired of being hit. He told Dan Patrick he wants some say in personnel decisions. He's throwing his offensive line under the bus when he is just as, if not more guilty than Pat Mahomes of holding on to the football too long. For the entirety of Russell Wilson's career, ask yourself, Sunday afternoons, East to West Coast, when you turn on the Seahawks game, what are you used to seeing? Russell Wilson running around trying to make a play on the last drive of the game. That's how every Seahawk game seems to be on repeat. It's like Groundhog Day, again and again. And whether or not his offensive line stinks, or his running game isn't good enough, or his offensive coordinator, of course, they've made a change this year, his offensive coordinator didn't fit with his skill set. Whatever the reason is, you got another dude who just lost a Super Bowl and was clearly under duress, and the coaching staff clearly didn't prepare or adjust well to the type of pressure he was seeing, and the offensive line was totally depleted by injury. And he was 100% accountable. And now you have Russell Wilson, who won a Super Bowl, lost the Super Bowl, in which he threw the game-losing interception, by the way. Like, we talk all about, well, they should have given to Marshawn Lynch. They should have done this. Like, Russell Wilson threw the pick. That's it. End of story. Josina Anderson said, a text from a source, I know this, nobody is trading Russell Wilson. All you can do is fix the O-line and learn new offense. We all knew that. Can't compare yourself to Brady. Oh, he compared himself to Brady and to LeBron James. Like, look, this dude needs to get over himself. This dude is so entitled, it is silly. And I like Russell Wilson. I like Russell Wilson. I think most people like Russell Wilson. It's fun to watch him. Got a great arm. Got great legs. Seems to understand how to keep his balance and be ready for the big moment. He's as good as anybody has ever been in the history of the National Football League of moving, setting his feet quickly, and having great power and accuracy throwing the football. He's fantastic. But, dude, what are you doing? I'm tired of being hit. That's calling out the offensive line. I want player personnel. I want to be involved in player personnel. Okay. The adage or the slogan in the NFL is do your job. Your job is to play quarterback, not to try and go and pick out the groceries. But Russell, to me, comes across as the opposite of what he would like to be perceived as, and especially with the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. All right, speaking of quarterbacks, I saw a fascinating story today. A running back who wants to join Tom Brady, and that running back ruined it for other running backs, just like Tom Brady is ruining it for other quarterbacks. Did you guys see this story that Adrian Peterson would like to play with Tom Brady, right? Adrian Peterson, the ageless running back, which, you know, it's interesting, right? Like Leonard Fournette, who hand it to Leonard, don't throw it to Leonard. That's one thing that I think we've learned here during the playoffs. But Leonard Fournette had success, and now Adrian Peterson, who, can you guess how old Adrian Peterson is? By the way, he ran for the Detroit Lions this year and for 604 yards. Last year, 898 yards with the Washington football team. Year before that, 1,000 yards at 33 years old. Now, in terms of receiving, you know, only 18 targets this year, 12 catches, 17 and 20. Like he's an old school classic running back. But what people need to remember about Adrian Peterson, or most of us remember, is that AD, and just so we're aware, his nickname is AD. His initials are AP. Adrian Peterson's nickname is All Day. Always has been, because when he was a little kid, he ran around, he had energy all day, right? So it was AD. AD, at 26 years old, tore his ACL. The next year, he returned, played a full season, and had a 2,000-yard season. He averaged 131.1 yards rushing. And what did that do? It completely changed how we viewed running backs, how we viewed anybody coming off a torn ACL, right? He ruined it for everybody. That's exactly what Tom Brady is doing for the National Football League. Like, look, I've heard all these discussions about, well, you know, had Mahomes beaten Brady, he could catch Brady. But now it's really hard. 7-1. It's very difficult. Very difficult. Difficult. Nobody in the NFL plays quarterback's been to more than 5 Super Bowls. I mean, he's the outlier's outlier. And I understand that the way in which quarterbacks are protected now, they're less likely to be hurt and they can play longer. There's a reason these guys are playing longer. Right? But Phillip Rivers is a great quarterback. He was washed for the last 2 years. Drew Brees is going to retire this year. He was washed for the last 2 years. That's normal. Just like Adrian Peterson is the outlier's outlier. Most guys struggle their first year back. Second year back, they're usually back to being close to their old selves. And then, of course, their career is shortened because once you go in, have that thing redone, there's always something else that's going to go wrong, or it begins early, like your knee is never the same. That's, and I hate this word sometimes, normal. Abnormal is Adrian Peterson at 35 years old still having some gas in the tank after suffering 10 years ago a debilitating ACL injury, then coming back and comeback player of the year, MVP of the league. Tom Brady's, like you hear Russell Wilson, I want to play till I'm 40 something. That Aaron Rodgers, I want to play in my 40s. Like the only guy who's had real success in their 40s is this guy. And he's screwed up the whole thought process of what makes an incredible career. He's been to 10 Super Bowls. Do you realize how unlikely that is? Yeah, there's some luck to it. There's the credit of playing in a bad division with the best coach in the history of football and being the most successful quarterback in the history of football. But when we use that as our guide to greatness, it's completely skewed. It's like if you or I, we compare our salaries to that of professional athletes. Like we can't. The scale is completely off because most people, they don't, that's not normal. That's something, if you create a graph, right, that's something, a complete outlier to wherever you are on the S curve. And that's where Brady is. You cannot use his career, his success, his numbers, his longevity, his ability to do it as long as he's done it as anywhere close to a guide for what's a reasonable sense of what a great quarterback is. Every other great quarterback, I mean, look, Dan Marino's great. He went to 1 Super Bowl. And it was early in his career, and everybody thought, he's going to be back 5 or 6 times. He played for a great coach in Don Shula. He never sniffed the Super Bowl again, ever. And he played forever. Played like 13 more years and never got to a Super Bowl again, playing for Don Shula. Whereas Brady now, he's not using the performance enhancers that Bonds did, but that's what Bonds did for, that's really the problem with the steroids and the home run chase and why I wouldn't put him in the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's not that he led the league in home runs. He had 73, so it completely changes how we look at any number. Because once you've seen 73, you're like, well, nothing else compares. Of course not. You take an all-time great, you pump him full of steroids. Late in his career, he has this ridiculous surge in a ballpark that's built to the way he hits a baseball. Brady has ruined it for everybody because they all think they can, on some level, play as long and as well as long as he's played.